All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are out of time to procrastinate any further. It's Wednesday, 8:30 in the evening, and whether we're ready for it or not, it's time for another live stream. Hi, everybody. It's Jason here with Green Country Agroforestry. I'm here in northeastern Oklahoma, of course, and today's topic is the thing that we all wish that somebody in our lives had told us when we were much, much younger or much, much earlier, and that is, I don't know what I'm doing. Trust me. I know we've had these moments, I do on a fairly regular basis, where we get to that point where we thought our way through the thing that we're getting ready to do, and that we're actually in the process now of doing whatever thing is. We're in the midst of execution. And in the midst of execution, the sudden realization hits, oh my goodness. The things that I did not know going into this could fill volumes. Why did nobody tell me about whatever it is before I got to this point? I should have been properly informed. But the thing is, you don't know certain bits of information if the only thing you do is read books. The thing that I'm encountering recently that's challenging my preconceptions is a piece of machinery. It's a feed pelletizer. A while back, I showed you something that got shipped to us, advertised as a feed pelletizer. I opened it up, and it's just a meat grinder. It's like, no, this is not something I can use to take my weeds and turn them into animal feed. What I'm looking for is something else. And we went ahead and we ordered it up, and it arrived not too long ago. And I've been wrestling with the machine ever since. My first experience with it, we tried running some corn. I had some corn left over. It was deer corn. I'd used it for a nixtamalization video last year. It had been sitting around not really doing anything because we grow our own strain of corn here. Oddly enough, I have a box full of this stuff right next to me. We grow our own strain of corn, and it looks a bit different, right? It's got this purple and white. This is not a really great example of that particular strain of corn, but it has certain characteristics that are different from your typical field corn or deer corn. All right, so the first attempt that we use with this machine is trying to run corn through it, and I didn't know anything at all about this machine. All I know is it's got a couple burrs that sit on the top that spin around with a plate that spins around at a high rate of speed with little holes in it. They're about 4 millimeters. Actually, they're 4 millimeters going in and maybe about 3.8 millimeters coming out. They get really narrow on the opposite end. Anyway, so it spins around. It's supposed to pack your corn or whatever it is that you're feeding into this machine down into little pellets, so it makes pellets for your animals. All right. I think this is great. We're going to get this. We're going to get it running up. We're going to make pellets for the animals. We're going to make pellets for the ducks. They're going to be able to eat pelletized feed, and we're going to be able to cut our feed costs. This is what I'm thinking, right? We order up this machine. I don't remember how much it is. Mary could probably tell us. It was the cost of the machine plus shipping, and she's the one that arranged all of that. Altogether, about $1,500, I think. Mary, you can correct me. I mean, there's a certain amount for the machine, a certain amount for the shipping. Not a cheap piece of equipment. We get the thing in, I start feeding this deer corn into it. First thing that starts happening is the burrs like spinning around to the top, and one of them's not spinning as fast as the other one, and it's nicking the corn, and it's making kind of a cornmeal come out. I'm like, well, this isn't what we're on. It's grinding the corn. Hey, that's great, but I've got a manual grinder if I want to grind corn. I want to make pellets. So I take a look, and I see there's a couple of screws at the top on either side that can push down on that burr that spins around across the top. It's like, okay, so if I can pack this burr, it's going to start applying pressure. It's going to start forcing that material through the plate. Maybe that'll make the pellets. I crank these screws down so that the burr is now just running right across the surface of the plate. Right across. All right. Mary's giving us the lowdown. It was 1,000 plus somewhere between 300 and 400 for shipping. So it's not a cheap machine. We'll put it this way. Thing runs off of 220 volts. We happen to have a 220 volt circuit up here where the air conditioner in the front room goes through. Well, okay, I'll get a little adapter, plug it into there. We're good to go. All right. That's where we're at this moment. But, things don't work out the way you anticipate, right? And I'm wearing my little red hat here because it's that time of year. Right? It's time for the red caps to come on. Red caps is harvest time, folks. So red cap shows up with, of course, the red cap and a sickle. All right. Fairy tale lore says the red cap is a type of gnome. they have a foul disposition, but they only appear at harvest time. They're harvesters, and that's what we've been doing here this week is a lot of harvesting. Sometime later on, we're going to switch hats and we're going to wear the black hat again, the black cap. That'll be the winter attire. That's to keep your head warm in the winter. This one here, I'll start wearing something like this in the spring, and that's just to keep the sweat out of my eyes. All right. So I'm gonna switch the color of caps for the seasons. You guys want to see a green cap or a blue cap? Wouldn't that be fun? All right. The topic tonight, of course, is I don't know what I'm doing. Trust me. And what I discovered real quickly was when it came to making feed pellets with this new pelletizing machine, I really don't know what I'm doing. I've never had any experience with this machine before, ever. When I was a kid, we used a little hammer mill. We ran it off of a belt off the farm tractor, and we used that to pound up, silage material, crowder peas and stuff like that. Hammer that up, break it up, and make it suitable to feed the animals. But we didn't go so far as to make feed pellets out of it. So this is a new experience for me. Never used one of these things before. All right. Vicky saying maybe not inexpensive doesn't mean it's not cheap. Actually, it's a very fine machine. I mean, it is what it's intended to be. And if I can get it to work properly, then it's going to do great stuff for me. So I spent today doing something that Mary wanted me to do, which was to cut the lamb's quarter on the north side of the driveway where she parks her truck. And I did that. And I had another lamb's quarter that was out there in the midst of a gummy tree that was blocking it. And this is what we got here, right? This entire tub full of this. I've got it, broken up into small pieces so it'll feed easily. But what it really is this stuff. And you can't see it because of the green screen. So let me fix that real quick. There we go. All right. Let's just turn that off entirely. So this stuff right here is what we've got appearing this time of year. And this, of course, is Chenopodium album or lamb's quarter. And this time of year, this profuse mass of seeds that you see forming here are being made. The plant's trying to reproduce. At this stage, these are the flowers that have closed, that have become fertilized. The seeds are forming, but it's still tender. And you still have tender greens and tender shoots on this plant. So we've been going through and stripping all of the seeds and the leaves and the tender bits off like so. And we can just snap this other bit. All of this right here is high in protein, so it's going to make a good feed for the ducks. So we've been harvesting our lamb's quarter. And that leaves us with a little bit of cellulose that's left behind. And I'm thinking cellulose is not, we could do something with cellulose too. I can dry this stuff, run it through a pelletizer, and make pellets for a pellet stove, a wood stove, have fuel. So I've got a fuel to keep the house warm, and I've got a feed stuff to turn into pellets for the ducks. That might be pretty good. Here's something else that was harvesting today. This is the flowers and seeds that have been formed for a form of Amaranthus cruentia. It's supposed to be a purple colored flower, but as you can see, it did not turn out purple. We wound up getting green flowers. Still produce lots of seeds, lots of protein in these, but not really great as an ornamental. So my goal of growing those was crossing my fingers and hoping I'd have that plant that I could get out there and get out in the public eye that's ornamental in appearance, but has on its backside, whenever fall comes around, it's time to put on the red caps, we can use it to produce some sort of feed. And it'll work as feed, but it's not a great ornamental. That's all I'm saying. So we've got this left over. All right. Get my fluffy clouds back behind me. My lovely mushrooms and the fluffy clouds. Look at that. So you see the mushrooms, you see the clouds, you see the mushrooms, you see the clouds. All right. That's as close as we're going to get to mushroom clouds today. Don't you wish the people that were in charge would come up and say, hey, look, I don't know what I'm doing. because seriously, if they could look us in the eyes and say, look, I don't know what I'm doing, really. I have no idea what's going on. I'm out of my depth here. This is the first time I've ever tried this. has some great ideas, but really, I don't know what's going to happen. At least they'd be being honest with us. Oh, oh my. So recently, you guys heard the news, right? Over there in Russia, there's a submarine that left its yard, and they don't know where it is right now. All over the world, you've got countries like the United States. They're scrambling to implement their continuity of government plans. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, if I'm Vladimir, this is what I'm thinking. It's just one little submarine, man. So all I got to do is look around and see who's scurrying for cover, and I kind of have an idea who blew up the pipeline. Oh my, that's a nice beer. How's everybody doing out there tonight? You guys doing good? Catch up with comments real quick here. Vicky's in the house. Mary's in the house. Ken's with us tonight. Kids pray for wisdom. Adults need it. Yeah. Mary says we don't know how much the electrician will cost us. Okay, so yeah, I should probably explain. The outlet up in the front, where the 220 outlet up front, it's a 220 20 amp outlet. This machine is supposed to draw maybe 17, 18 amps tops. About the time that the corn started to clog up the inside of the plate of this device, I said I didn't know what I was doing. I'm putting the corn in. I was like, okay, we get cornmeal. I crank it down, and now they're pounding right on the plate. It starts pushing that corn through the plate. Sure enough, yep. And at the same time, it starts turning it into this material that has some sort of adhesive properties. It sets up hard like stone. I'm calling it corncrete. If I could patent the stuff, I'd be a millionaire. Apparently, if you've got corn that's too dry and you start grinding it, and it's got nowhere to go, it starts to chemically alter the composition of the corn. And it makes a substance that sets hard like concrete. So now I've got these hard plugs of stuff that have clogged up the plate that's supposed to be making pellets. There's nothing going through it at all. And it gets so hard that it stops the burrs from turning at the top and locks up the shaft. The machine goes, and all of a sudden I go, whoa, I got to turn this thing off. And it's already too late. By the time I have it turned off, the breaker is tripped. And we go, okay, let's go reset the breaker. We go and reset the breaker and go, okay, we'll just plug something back into this outlet. The outlet doesn't work. We have a look at it. Turns out that when they were wiring this house, in order to get a 220 outlet at that location, what they decided to do was take two circuits and wire them in parallel. So we've got two 120s wired in parallel going to that outlet, and they just tied them together at the breaker box. Well, the moment that we had 100% load on that little 220 engine, it wanted to draw a lot of current through that particular circuit, which was not a 220 circuit. It was two 110s wired in parallel. It caused one of the elements in the breaker box to quit functioning. Ordinarily, you'd say, okay, you damaged a breaker. Kudos to you. All you got to do now is go replace that breaker. Unfortunately, the breaker box that this house has is one of those ancient Bakelite monobody breakers, and all of the circuits are on the same breaker. It's one single body, one single breaker housing with all the circuit breakers worked into it. So we're going to have to replace the entire box. Yay. And I can't use that outlet. Yay. But we do have another 220 outlet. Yay. Once again, where the dryer hooked up, that's in the back of the house. So we've got that one. And now I've got another adapter Well, let me hook up to that particular 220, which is the 30 amp circuit. Should be no reason why that engine, that motor, the 220 motor, is going to draw more power than is possible from that circuit. So it should be, oh, good Lord, knocking on wood, should be okay. But once again, I don't know what I'm doing. Trust me. Ken's in the house saying it's hard to beat a little red tractor. Yeah, we just don't have enough yard for a little red tractor, unfortunately. John Crawford's in the house. Howdy, howdy. Vicky said, had a trip into town in a car whose seat was misery on my back. I will be at least all day tomorrow trying to recuperate. It's not the getting old, it's the getting decrepit. I tell you what, you ain't kidding. A while back, I was walking along, and on my right foot, I managed to step so here's the pinky toe right here. So that these two little bones here are on the side, and they kind of folded over everything else. And there was this nice little crunch and a little pop that I feel right here where the arch is. A little pop, like somebody was like hitting you with a did the thumb flick or something like that on the bottom of my foot. Only it more kind of feels like somebody just took a nail and stabbed you there with it. That sort of sensation. And ever since then, the 3 middle toes on my right foot have been numb. It's been a wonderful experience. It's not lack of circulation. They're not numb and cold. They're just like the nerve that goes there has been pinched by those bones crunching over each other, and it kind of drives me nuts sometimes. We got Bittner Tinkers. Dangerous. Oh my gosh. I don't know what's dangerous. Joe says, not too late, only 10 minutes. Hey! So I know that you guys are 10 minutes. Okay. I'm reading 17 minutes in, so that tells me how far behind I am. Talking about putting it in line. Yeah, we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to go rewire some things before we can even use that outlet. But that's we'll jump off that bridge when we come to it. A lot of the stuff that we've got going on with this house, really, my idea is it needs a new house. If I could tear everything down and start over from the beginning, there's much better ways of constructing a house so it's more insulated and stuff like that. Anyway. Joe is saying, has anyone seen Arkansas Woodcutter? Mark, he's been doing some inspirational, meditative, and Christian live streams at various times, usually in the morning, and he'll run for a couple of minutes whenever he does them, and he gets off, and I don't know what he's up to these days. He hasn't been doing regular gardening content. Yeah, and it was funny to me because I grew up in an old farmhouse. I mean, old, but the breaker box in that old farmhouse, if I needed to replace a breaker, I could go in and pull that breaker, and I could replace that breaker. Right? This thing, nope. It's less sophisticated than the old farmhouse was. It's disturbing, but it's the 1940s era house. They were doing everything. We're talking, this thing is cast out of Bakelite. It's old. I don't know what I'm doing. Trust me. Joe is saying the title of the live stream applies to your subs and obviously not to you. I'm actually, when it comes to operating this feed pellet machine, it is all new to me. So I have not run this material through it yet. This Lamb's Quarters Chinopodium album. I haven't run the amaranth through it. I've got amaranth that we harvested for that. So all of this is really good, high protein stuff. In the spring, we can process curly dock through it. That's got lots of iron, lots of minerals, vitamin A. If we were looking for protein and vitamin A, that's okay. I should back up and explain something. Chickens and ducks and geese are not magical egg making machines. Just so you know. It may seem that way. And if you've been led to believe that, I'm sorry, but it's not true. They are not magical egg producing machines. You have to feed them, and you have to feed them the right kind of stuff if you want the nutrients to be in the eggs. So eggs we want because they have lots of protein, lots of vitamin A. They're a good source of beneficial fats for the body. As far as non-vegetative nutrient sources go, eggs are right up near the top of the list of perfect foods. But to get the nutrients into the eggs, we have to do certain things. And you can't just feed them corn or chicken scratch. You have to feed them, something that's going to give them the vitamins and minerals they need. So these greens, like this stuff here that you can't see because of the green screen, like this lamb's quarter, excellent stuff. It's going to put those nutrients in it. So what I've been doing is getting the nutrients necessary to put into the eggs. That's what we've been doing. We've been farming nutrients to process through the ducks that we receive back in the form of eggs. That's the idea, anyway. Now, I might know what I'm doing there, but it would be nice sometimes if the presumed leaders or the adults in the room would occasionally come up and say, "Hey, guess what? I don't know what I'm doing, but you're going to have to trust me." Would you feel better or worse if they confess to you that they really don't know what they're doing? Vicky's saying North Shore is out of the hospital, back home, and live streaming last night and today. Woohoo! Talking about North Shore preparedness, I would presume, right? Yep. All right. So I got thinking about this. They're getting busy around Mount Weather. They're flying the helicopters in, the ones without the running lights with no visible markings on them. So obviously government. They're probably just turning down the sheets and making sure there's peppermints on the pillows, right? Just in case you got to use that facility, making sure everything's in order, right? Yeah, just in case. But I got to thinking, what about this? What if we, as humanity, the people on this planet, we got together and we came up with a continuity of civilization plan? Sort of these organizations that call themselves governments, they wipe themselves out. We're left behind, right? Got to pick up the pieces. What if we had a continuity of civilization plan? And I'm thinking that should probably start with us coming up with maybe a universally accepted and understood human Bill of Rights. Like we know what our expectations are, or very base expectations of each other are. It'd be nice if we knew certain key things, like, do we want to live in a world where slavery is okay? And it's really simple. And a lot of people have this idea already. I think that I own me. I think that you own you. I don't think it's possible for one person to own another person. Everybody has to own themselves. If that's kind of one of our basic foundational agreements for how we interact with each other, it really colors a lot of human interactions going forward. We can get into that in greater detail later, but I think it's a great spot to begin from is the concept of universal freedom. We all own ourselves, in essence. I don't know. It's just me. It's just a thought. Before we got started, I put a poll up there at the top, and I asked this question. I don't know if it's showing up here. It might show up on. Yeah, it does. Okay, it shows up here on YouTube. All right, we have the question: which statement best suits you? If you have not filled this out yet, just find that up there at the top of chat. Click on it. We're going to let it run for a while. And in order they are: I usually know what I'm doing. 31% of the population says I usually know what I'm doing. Next choice, of course, is I like to think I know what I'm doing. And 31% of you said I like to think I know what I'm doing. 15% of you said, hey, there must be somebody out there who knows what they're doing. indicating probably not me and most likely not you, but somebody out there certainly has got a clue. And then at the very end, we've got everyone is making it up as they go along, which I got to admit, depending upon where I'm at in the course of the day, I feel differently. Sometimes I think, yeah, sure. It's a chaotic mess out there. I don't think anybody really has a clue what they're doing or what they're up to. They certainly aren't thinking about long-reaching implications or the impact on anything other than that immediate demographic group that they're looking at right this moment. That's all they're thinking of. It's like, okay, so this is how it's going to affect you guys. But as far as how it affects everybody, no, they aren't thinking about these things. They don't know what's going on. It's a circus out there, and the clowns are in charge. And so we have fluffy clouds and mushrooms, and that's what we get to think about: is fluffy clouds and mushrooms. They're pretty whenever you look at them this way. That mushroom behind me, that's not an angry red cap on that mushroom. That's kind of a reddish brown. So that's a King Stropharia rugosa annulata, a nice edible mushroom. It's full of good nutrition. Tastes a bit like a portobello that's been simmered in wine. I like them. We should actually have a few flushing here before too long. And I'm thinking, if I take this stuff and I shred it and I put it out there, oh, sorry, this is the bit of that lamb's quarter that was left, right? The woody stem part. If I take that and I shred it and I put it out there where those are growing, they'll probably consume the cellulose and make more mushrooms for me. I'll look through the comments here. Let me see here. Joe was talking about eating purslane. That's Portulaceae, high in vitamin E. Eaten purslane cooked. Recently tried it raw in salad, and it's good. Like the sour, slimy. Yeah, it's got a we would say mucilaginous texture, kind of like eating okra. Okra has that mucilaginous texture to it. Sweet potato leaves have a similar feel in the mouth whenever you're eating them. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. So it reminds you of cooked prickly pear. That's interesting. Most of the prickly pear that I get is pickled, so I don't get to taste that plant the way it is naturally, ordinarily. I'm growing prickly pear, so eventually I'll get to. But most of it that we get is pickled. And of course, there's the tunas, but you very rarely see anybody eating, at least up here at this latitude, very rarely anybody see anyone eating prickly pear. Whenever I introduced dopalitos to some of the kids here, they're like, "What the heck is that?" And it's like, it's cactus shoots. It's prickly pear cactus that's been sliced and prepared, and you put them on your tacos, man. It tastes good. I'm doing so much food on corn tortillas these days, just simply because, man, it's so much less expensive to sit down and get your meat and your vegetables, just some, little bit of pork tips. Okay, chop that up there. A little bit of lard. Got your onions, got your peppers, a little bit of cayenne, cumin, garlic. Mince some cilantro, throw in there, lime juice, sea salt. You're done. Toss. Put it onto a corn tortilla. You might put a little bit of frijoles on there. Sprinkle a little queso. If you want, some little chili verde sauce over the top, a little bit of sour cream. Oh, man. You've died and gone to heaven. And it's cheap, incredibly cheap. Fills you right up. It's cheap stuff, good for you. Eating foods that are native to where you live is a good idea. Even if, it's like, hey, we're an import. They reflect an awful lot of sunlight for a native. But the fact of the matter is, there are people who are growing corn right where I'm living now, thousands of years ago. That type of corn appears to be well adapted to growing in this area. It's good nutrition. It's great for making tortillas out of, and I can't wait to do some of that. Although I suspect it's going to be a lot of work. So getting the ones that are made at the factory is a nice cheap alternative at the moment. I can get like 80 tortillas for $3.36. And these are, they're nixtamalized corn tortillas, so they have all the protein available to them. Big is saying, too many people have chosen to trade their sovereignty for safety and a mess of pottage. See, this is the big question. I think we really need to get out there and we need to ask this question. And this is worldwide, humans, us. We need to get out there and we need to ask these entities that are calling themselves governments. Pardon me. I'm just a little bit confused about the relationship that we share here. I understand there is one. I would like to know specifically, is it your opinion that you own me? Because I was kind of being led by your propaganda to believe that I owned myself. And so I want to know, do I own myself as you have tried to lead me to believe all these years, or do you in fact own me? Because one way or the other, we're going to have to get this issue straightened out. If it turns out that I own myself, then we've got some problems. And if it turns out that you own me, we've got some problems. I think we need to have that conversation, even more so than a conversation between political left, political right. I don't think that matters at all. It's negligible, because the main question is, do we actually own ourselves? Do we have agency over our own selves? Do we guide our own destinies? Are these citizens of the world in control of anything, or are they just victims of criminal gangs acting without their permission or against their interests? That's huge. If we don't know this, then we can't really act appropriately. Veteran Ironwood says, "I hate throwing. I'm going to paraphrase you already. Don't like throwing money away, so I usually exhaustively research what I'm doing before I do it. I try. At a certain point, you have to just go, okay, there's things that I'm not going to know until I get started. So I'm going to go get, and I'm going to go do, and I'm going to find out. So here in the future, provided, of course, that we didn't not make a horrible financial mistake in spending almost $1,500 on a feed pelletizing machine, sometime in the near future, I'm going to be producing videos where I show you how to go about using one of these feed pellet making machines. They're not cheap. Right now, they're being made in China, and the instructions on how to use them are all Chinese. Most of the videos that you can watch on how to use them, they're all Chinese. I don't speak Chinese. I don't read Chinese. And so as a result, I'm having to figure this out, just like, okay, here's the machine, figure out how it works. And maybe watch some video and go, okay, it looks like he's doing that, but I can't understand what he's saying. And so he might be explaining something very important. I'm missing it, right? Because I don't know what he's saying. So a lot of trial and error. So far, it's been error, but we've got the machine cleaned out. I've got it moved over to the back porch. We've got a bunch of this lamb's quarter seed and amaranth and stuff like that, chopped up, drying, getting ready. So hopefully it's at the right moisture content to go through the machine and make pellets instead of mush. Somewhere in between the mushy wet and the too dry, I think, is the target we're looking for. And we'll see how that works. But oh yeah, I mean, you're starting working on a new project, and you look at the materials cost, especially if you're buying metals. Metal billets aren't cheap. Also depending upon the quality and grade of the metal you're getting. If you're just getting some raw iron, pig iron, or something like that to work with, that's not entirely inexpensive either. Yeah, Mary said it. I do a lot of research, and then I just go, okay, now I have to find out. I've gotten as far as I can by reading, right? And I keep on saying this. I don't know anything until I've done it. Until I've actually gone and done whatever it is, I don't know it. So I can say, yeah, I've heard about this. There's somebody who was talking to me in comments about building some sort of a contraption to take plastic and get a usable fuel oil out of the plastic, or use a usable fuel out of plastic. Because I've heard of people doing this, but I've not gotten to that point in researching it that I know that, okay, yeah, they are doing it. Maybe it's possible. I know how to do. I'm not anywhere close to that on the spectrum. It's like, yeah, I've heard of it. I don't know how it works. I haven't attempted it yet. And if I ever do, then we'll get there. I'm thinking probably what I would like to do with plastics, if I was going to do anything, would be come up with an inexpensive recycling method for recycling plastics. Maybe taking plastic, grinding it, converting it into spooled plastic for running off of a 3D printer or something like that. Maybe that would be what I would do with plastics. But I suppose you could turn them into fuel. Vicky's saying, if I'm calling it rightly, purslane is the most dense vegetable source of omega-3 fatty acids. It's very, very high in omega-3s. Very, very high. So, healthy to eat. Heterodox says Brussels sprouts have omega-3. You know, Brussels sprouts are good. My tastes have changed. Back when I was a little kid, I loved Brussels sprouts. I don't know, it's a weird kid. He likes Brussels sprouts. I didn't like asparagus. I liked Brussels sprouts. I thought Brussels sprouts were like little miniature cabbages, and they tasted stronger than a regular cabbage because they had all that good cabbagey goodness condensed down in this tiny little package, right? Yum, Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts. Now getting older, like I don't really like the taste of Brussels sprouts anymore. I think I'd rather have cabbage. I think I'd just rather have cabbage. But you know, all these cruciferous vegetables are fairly good for you as far as the mineral content, protein profiles. Vicky's saying many plants called invasive pests and weeds were originally planted as food for and medicinal. I should probably touch on that because I was thinking about this not too long ago. Somebody was making one of those "what is it that you do" sort of questionnaires, and I usually come up with a flippant answer for it, and I actually do have an answer. What I really do, aside from an attempt to convince an otherwise intelligent species not to go extinct, but what I really do is try to find things that are productive as sources of food or useful materials for humans that are able to sync well with a localized environment. These are the area around here, the local environment, and are capable of reproducing and carrying on their life processes, whether I am here to tend them or not. That's mainly what I'm focused on. So basically, I get a bunch of things, I plant them, and then I neglect them. And people go, why do you neglect your stuff? Why do you let it all die? It's like, because if I had to baby it through the tough times, if I have to baby it, then I know that it's not going to survive here. Oklahoma is a land of extremes. We go from extremely cold winters at the coldest depths of our winter, which oddly enough comes around February. February is coming. Anytime you think the winter's been too mild, if you haven't seen February yet, don't worry. February is coming. It's going to be here. You're going to wake up one morning and go, wow, it's the Arctic freaking circle here in Oklahoma. How did that happen? It's called the Great Plains. There's absolutely nothing in between the Arctic and down here. Whenever the jet stream switches, it goes whoosh down there. It's a winter wonderland. The North Pole came to visit. And that'll last for a day or two, and then it'll be gone. But if you're trying to grow something that can't handle that sudden drop in temperature, it's not going to make it out here. And the same thing goes for stuff on the other side of the spectrum. It gets incredibly hot. There was a time this summer that Joe was getting into comments down there, and he's telling me what the temperature is in southern Mexico. And I'm hearing the temperatures in southern Mexico and say, oh my God, do you want to trade places? It's hell up here. We're burning up. And he's like, nope. No, thank you. I like where I'm at. But we get these extremes. I figure if I can get a group of plants together that work well together, you can grow a good cohesive garden out of it and get a produce out of it, be able to survive off of those things. And they can survive here, then they can survive just about anywhere. And that's just your baseline. I mean, you can build up and get more productive. I can't talk. Ooh, good beer. More productive, depending upon the area that you live in. I've seen food forests from Zone 2. And the stuff that they have there is just amazing. Great diversity, different stuff, different berries, different nuts, different fruits, different nice pieces of vegetation that are grown for their vegetative qualities. Salad greens, stuff like that. Great stuff. All good food to eat. Growing in Zone 2. Chewy Weather's in the house. Saying good evening, good evening. I am not in a mood. That's lies. Lies, damn lies. I'm drinking a Doppelbock, and being somewhat German, um, it has an effect on me. Barry saying, do a how-to video in English for the pelleters. Exactly, I'm going to do that whenever we've got a handle on it, which hopefully I'll have a handle on it. Maybe as early as tomorrow or the next day. I've got to let this material that I've been cutting up dry and cure just a little bit before I run it through the machine. I don't want it to be too wet going through. I can always add more water, I suppose, if I need to moisten it, right? But if it's too wet, it's going to be a mess. All right. I'm obviously behind. Roasted with garlic and I don't know what you're saying, but it sounds good. You're talking my language right there, buddy. No name is asking, what kind of fertilizer mix do you use, macros, and all of that? I attempt to get symbiotic organisms to move into the landscape and partner with me in the production of soil, which is a crazy way of saying by using a deep mulch system, I encourage fungal growth followed by an infestation of worms, earthworms. Lots and lots of earthworms gobbling up fungal mycelia, producing worm casting, taking former tree material and breaking it down into its fundamental minerals and other components to produce fertile soil. I'm attempting to fast track an area of river bottom and turn it into forest, because as far as I can tell, that's the best situation for it. If I can get good canopy cover over the top, lots of organic matter down below, we can trap and hold on to moisture, increase organic matter over time, increase soil life and diversity, and create a more fertile system. That's it. The question is, what does it take to jumpstart that? I mean, you can't just like walk onto a desert and get started. You need to do a few things. You have to make sure you've got water, and you can keep water and hold water and keep that in contact with the soil so you can generate the microbiome, everything that you need to make soil aggregates. Fun stuff. All right. Animals and perennials, mostly. Vicky's talking about Joseph Lofthouse. And really, I got a lot of my inspiration from Mark Shepard up there in Wisconsin, New Forest Farm. The guy is he's a pill, but I don't think he's wrong. He just takes a lot of stuff, throws it at the wall, and goes, okay, all these plants survive. We're going to keep those. All right, now all of these, they produced early. We're going to keep those. Now all of these, they seem to be resistant to disease. We're going to keep those. And he may start out with 1,000 different plants and end up with 3 or 4 that go, okay, we're going to let these guys reproduce now because they make the criteria. They were able to grow in that environment. They were able to thrive where other things died. And, you know, the more space you've got to work at, the better off you are. I don't have a lot of space. So I just have to. Ich liebe den Tafelbach. Prost! Ein Prosit. Yeah. Oh my goodness. This area of Oklahoma mainly settled by German immigrants. So if you're from here, chances are you've got some German in you. Heterodox is asking us, anyway, try brewing Greek, or I don't even know what Greek is. I gotta look this up. Watch. I'm gonna go consult Google. I tell you, I do this all the time. You just don't believe me. Herb mixture used for bittering and flavoring beer, popularly for extensive use of hops. Term. Okay, so we're talking about non-hops bittering agents. Of course, you guys. Okay, so there's some examples: mugwort, yarrow, horehound, ground ivy, common heather. Oh, heather definitely would do the trick, right? Let me jump back over here and look. So what I just looked up here on Wikipedia, a very short version of it is, okay, using something other than hops as a bittering agent and also a source of your acidity whenever you're brewing. The thing is, whenever you're doing a brew, when you're brewing beers, the thing that hops was used for was to keep the beer from spoiling. And so this is how we got the American India Pale Ale. You see, this is very popular in the United States of America. Is the IPA? Why is the IPA popular in America? And why is it India Pale Ale? What's going on here? So very early, in the very early days of European expansion and exploration, they would ship beer, which is fermented barley, right, in barrels within the ships, and your beer ration was part of your regular food ration. Essentially, it's like, pork chop in every bottle. It's part of your food. It's also a way you can drink water that has had, thanks to the activity of the alcohol and the yeast in the water, killed off most of the bacteria, so you're not subject to nasty bacteria disorders. So drinking beer is healthy for you. But over long voyages, it would tend to spoil in the barrels. And they found out that if you put certain herbs in there, the acidity of the herbs would compete with or make a competitive environment that the bacteria couldn't grow in. And that kept bacteria from spoiling your batch of beer, but it made them very bitter. And hence you have dry hopped Imperial Pale Ale or India Pale Ale. Either one of those. India Pale Ale, sorry. Yeah, what they said. Dry hopped IPA. It's a very colonial thing. It's an American thing. But back in Europe, they didn't need to do this. You brewed your beer, you drank your beer, you didn't have to add extra hops. So the idea of adding extra hops or more bitterness is very much an American sort of thing. Vicky's saying David the Good does something similar and wrote a book called Grow or Die. Yes, David the Good did, and he does. And we've got some David the Good books around here, as a matter of fact. He occasionally stops by and says howdy. So if he shows up. Mary is saying, I need a caterpillar. I don't know what that blue jelly bean looking thing is, and mushroom emojis. We are eligible for some additional emojis, some additional custom emojis for channel members. I have not gone through and made a new one in a while. I know we can add at least maybe one or two. Mary is saying a caterpillar emoji? Possibly. I think maybe a grasshopper emoji might be nice, considering the plague of locusts that we had this past year. But I'm open to suggestions. Oh man, I tell you what, there's just something about a Doppelbock. It has lots of crystal malt in it, so it has a really nice sweet taste to it. But the crystal malt doesn't ferment; it doesn't turn into alcohol. It just tastes sweet. Evelyn Korjak said, here in Scrub Pine, Florida, purslane grows without care. Add it to eggs or anything. It's free supplemental nutrition. You got to keep an eye out for these things, right? Look around. Wherever you happen to be, you're going to find something that just wants to grow. And, over down there, it's purslane. Out here, we do have some purslane that likes to grow. We also have some stuff called curly dock that loves to grow. And early in the spring, that's an excellent vegetable. And it's not really high in protein, but it is high in vitamins and minerals, which make an excellent supplement to add to your diet in the early spring, as long as you can find some way to add extra protein. There's a couple of different ways of doing that. I'm personally kind of fond of canna lily. Canna lily as a store food has a lot of starch, so that's a carbohydrate calorie that you get from it. But if you were to take your canna rhizomes and you put them into a tub with a clear top or a clear tub, either one, and put them out there where they can get light exposed to them on a regular basis, and over the winter, they'll grow sprouts up out of those rhizomes. You just snip the sprouts off, saute them in butter or whatever you've got, and the sprouts are high in protein. So this is a way you can get protein calories out of your cannas instead of just relying on them for nothing but a storage starch. They don't have to be just a starch. You can sprout them and eat the sprouts as a stored protein. I'm thinking you could probably use them as feed for ducks too, but hopefully I have enough feed made up that I can get through the winter and get to the other side of that. Just saying, planting near a river bottom. Actually, this is a river bottom. Mr. Bill of 52 channel has done in southwest Nebraska. But no ambition. Ambition durch, yeah. I probably know more conversational Spanish. I had a few years of German back in high school, and of course it's just part of local culture. So we've got a fairly decent German society. If you want to meet young Fräuleins in Tulsa, join the German society. You'll meet young Fräuleins in Tulsa. Advice to you kids that are having a hard time getting a date: go where the girls are, of course. And the nice thing is they'll tie their aprons off to tell you whether they're available or not. There you go. There's a little pro tip for you. The Gnostic Chef is in the house. Howdy, howdy. Let's see. Chris Kringle is here. Oh my goodness. Says hops converts to estrogen in the male body. Oh my goodness. Is that the reason why, after drinking all this beer, I've got these? Is that the reason? It's not the microplastics in the water. It's just drinking all that beer gives me these bazungas, these nice melons, right? Yeah. Woohoo. Joe saying, hey, my maternal gramps was in Bay City, Texas, sharecropping. Must have transferred family from Bohemia, which is in Germany. I don't know. That was a different time and age. There wasn't even a Germany until recently, I think, relatively speaking. We had Russia and Prussia, and Germany was kind of in Prussia. Now it's back to the First World War, but they've changed the names of things since then. And I don't know off the top of my head, so I'm not going to pretend I do. Before my time, Joe. I'm not that old. Eric, he says, was a soldier in Berlin, Germany for a few years, 88 through 91. My next door neighbor was over there from a little bit before that time. He was there right after the war. Bonhoeffer, of all places, I think is where he was stationed at. What a horrible place. There's just any place that's under military occupation is a horrible place. It doesn't even matter whether it's a well-intended military occupation or not. It's just the nature of the beast. It's all procedural, right? Everything runs off of procedure. Human rights have no meaning. And the odd thing is, whenever I look around and I see the way things are done in the United States of America today, what I'm seeing is a lot of that same sort of efficiency that I encountered in military life moving into everyday life, to the point where everything is procedure. There's a great harm that comes to that, because if everything is procedure, the value of the individual human being is lost. Everything's procedure. I'm okay as long as I follow procedure. It doesn't matter what evil I wind up doing. There's no individual accountability. I think that's where the main problem is. There's no individual accountability. If we've got a situation where, say, we're all on a ship, there's 100 of us, we're on a ship. Let's put it this way. And the ship goes down. We're on a sinking ship. Now, some of us are passengers, some of us are crew. The sink is shipping. There's 100 of us on the ship. There are 3 lifeboats on board the ship, and each lifeboat can hold, at a maximum, if we stretch it to capacity, if we have people hanging off the side, holding on to their life preservers and going, okay, well, we're just hanging on as best we can. We're going to take turns being in the water here. 33 people per lifeboat. That's 99 people altogether. One person is not going to be on the lifeboats. If we've got a captain in charge of the ship that makes these decisions, the ultimate decision about who gets to be on the lifeboat and who has to stay behind, if he's a good captain, hopefully he says, I'm going to stay on the ship. I'm going to go down with the ship. You 99 people, you get on these lifeboats, your lives will be saved. We go, well, that's the way things are supposed to work, right? What was going on with this captain? He had ultimate responsibility. He had ultimate authority. And the authority that he had is the authority that is granted to him by the owner of the ship. The captain could be the owner of the ship, but in actuality, it is the owner of the ship that has the final decision about who is allowed to be on or use his property at all, period. End of story. That is an ownership right. The owner of the lifeboats can say, you people can be on these lifeboats. That's an ownership right. The captain is embodied with those rights from the owner of the ship or whoever he's representing as the captain of the ship. So he can make these decisions. You guys get on the lifeboats. You guys get on the lifeboats. You guys, your crew, I'm sorry. Whenever you signed up for this, you kind of understood that if there were going to be cuts to be made, the passengers get to go first. That's what they signed on for. That's what they agreed to whenever they booked passage with the ship. It says, look, my life is a priority for you. This is my contract. You're supposed to prioritize my life. But we only have these sorts of agreements and assurances if there's a simple and basic understanding. And that basic understanding is of ownership. Do I own me? Do you own you? You see, if you entered into a contract with that shipping company saying, I am going to be cargo on this ship, then part of the ownership rights of the person have been transferred to whoever's in charge of the ship now. Now the right that they're exercising is not the right of ownership of the ship, saying you can or cannot be on this vessel. It's ownership of the cargo, the thing, that you've given to this person to do with as they see fit. If the relationship that you and I and everyone else have with what we call government is a relationship of property and owner, that creates a problem. And if it is not, then the behavior of the people that are acting as government creates a problem for us because we own ourselves. It's something we have to address. Take a look. There we go. Evelyn says, hey, I believe if it grows everywhere man is, we're talking about Purslane and Portulacia. This stuff that I was talking about earlier here, this lamb's quarters, Chenopodium album, also grows everywhere. Well, everywhere Europeans have been. As a matter of fact, there's another name for it, which is somewhat racially charged, so I'm not going to use. Okay, it's called white man's footprint, okay? But there are a couple other plants that get that name too. For example, plantain, Plantego majoris and Plantego minoris, both of those also edible, very useful for medicinal purposes, mucilaginous as well, if you're putting leaves in salad. Both of those also travel everywhere the Europeans went, everywhere, and spread it all over the place. And now these plants are nativized. They're normal. You walk through any environment where people have been ever, and you're going to see certain plants that came along with people. And whether they were there originally or not, they're part of the landscape now. They are natural. They have become nativized. And I'll hear people talk about, how horrible it is that these humans have come along and they're taking these invasive species and they're moving them into places where they were never before and introducing them. It's like, okay, let me think about this for a minute. Are you the kind of person that would sit there and watch a squirrel working underneath an oak tree, gathering pecans, or not gathering pecans, it's an oak tree, gathering acorns? Squirrels out there getting these acorns. He's running over and he's planting them. He's putting them in a hole in the ground, right? You watch the squirrel. He's going and he's taking these acorns further than the acorn would have just fallen from the tree and bounced. He's moving them further than that. So the tree's natural ability to spread its acorns ordinarily has been enhanced by the activity of the squirrel taking those acorns and moving them further away than they would have just dropped from the tree ordinarily. Do you mean to tell me that you believe you're justified in shooting that squirrel because he's importing invasive species over to that plot of land over there? Of course not. The squirrel is doing what he's made to do by nature. What he's made to do by nature is go, hey, I like this for food. It's got things that I value. I want to stash these acorns. And occasionally the tree goes, hey, I'm going to pull a fast one on you. I'm going to make more acorns than you can possibly eat this year. But because you're programmed to stash as many as you possibly can. You're going to take them and you're going to spread them everywhere, and you're going to plant these acorns for me. And I'm going to have lots of little baby trees that pop out far and wide because you think my nuts are that good. Humans do the same thing as squirrels, exactly the same thing. But humans do this on a global scale. Shoot, give humans the ability to visit other planets. We'll do it on the galactic scale. We'll take things that we find useful and go, this is a good planet. We want to promote this planet. We're going to plant it here on this planet. We'll plant it on that planet. We'll plant it on that planet over there. We're going to travel the universe planting these plants everywhere we go because we see the value in them. And that is nature. That's what humans are for. It's the niche that humans fill in nature. It's part of the entire reason the ecology has humans in it. It's because humans are supposed to do that sort of thing. Now, there are people who go, oh no, we don't want to let the humans be humans. What in the world will happen to the environment? Well, the environment will suffer with a lack of humans. That's what will happen. Evelyn says, ooh, canna lily, another beastie that grows in my yard without care. Oh, yeah, right? If you guys are not, if you're not trying to grow canna, and you might have a harder time growing it the further north you go, I'm just saying. Sometimes you might hit a spot where maybe the rhizomes won't make it through the winter in the ground, and you really do have to dig them out and bring them in. In which case, put them in peat moss, moisten the peat moss, moisten, don't wet, moisten, and put them in a closed container where they won't get light over the winter, but they'll stay at a reasonable temperature above freezing. Springtime comes, go plant them out again. Everything's good. You put them in a clear tote, and they'll start sprouting. You can eat the sprouts; they're high in protein. So cannas are awesome. But yeah, if you let them go, if you just let them, I don't know, I forgot about them, didn't care. They popped up, they grew back the next year, they grew back the next year, grew back the next year. 25 years later, there's still cannas in the landscape. What did I do? I planted some once upon a time. That's what I did. They're still here? Oh, yeah, they're still here. I can put cannas in the ground, they'll still be here decades from now. I can put pecans in the ground, they'll still be here 100 years from now. All right, here's the word. Hops is depressant and aphrodisiac. Oh, yeah, and it makes you really. I didn't realize. All right. Fruit stimulates the mind, creates euphoria, and is aphrodisiac. Okay. Well, I guess it really depends on what herbs you choose to use, right? I had a bug in my coffee. Oh, my God. That's horrible. Hey, we'll edit that in post. Early Christian monks mandated hops to tame the savages. I know there are a lot of monks busy making liqueurs that have interesting herbal combinations in them. What we call Jägermeister is one of those interesting herbal combinations. I wouldn't call it an anaphrodisiac. Let's put it that way. Let's see, put Kansas here. Thanks to me, yay! Trying Himica next. Yeah, nice. I mean, if you can get Himica to grow, and it turns out that something you like, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Try it. Absolutely. 100% try it. If it's something you like, then go, hey, look, I tried Himica. It's awesome. And if you don't like it, you go like, well, I know it's not for me. Nasturtium is one that I've tried, and it's like, yeah, I can grow it, but I don't like it. That's fine. I mean, there's plenty of other good things. But try it out. Try Himica. If you've got space for it, try Monkey Puzzle Tree if you're a little bit further south. Monkey Puzzle Tree. It's a nut tree. It's dioecious. No. Am I saying that right? Yeah. Okay, so it has both male and female sexes, but they're not both found on the same tree. And as a result, if you're going to have fruit being produced, you have to have both male and female trees, and you probably want at least one male, 2 or 3 females. So this would be something you'd put in a fairly large area. If you've got several neighbors and you'd all like to be kind of like, I'd like to have a tree, but what are you going to get? And like, I can get 5 monkey puzzle trees. I'll plant the male in somebody's yard that doesn't really care about the nuts, and I'll plant the females in everybody else's yard that wants to get the nuts. And as a result, we'll freaking have monkey puzzle nuts. Hey, and that's a pretty cool looking tree. It's very awesome, prehistoric looking, and totally native, but just unknown, simply because the places where they fit have been kind of pushed to the side and marginalized. So if we get busy in this process of trying to find trees and shrubs and bushes and perennials and move them back in and move them around us where we live, that's one of the things to look at. You can have a community with monkey puzzle trees in it, and people will come through there and look at your community. What are all these trees that you have? They're so different in your neighborhood. What are those? And those are monkey puzzle trees. It's a nut tree. I can grow it as a canopy tree. It gets nice. It gets big. Provides lots of shade. The kids have fun building tire swings underneath it, and then in the fall it drops nuts, and we go collect the nuts, and they're nutritious. They're high in protein, lots of fats. We can press them for oil, feed them to the animals if we want to use them for animal feed, but they're good. Let's see. Vicky is saying where I'm at, Canada's at best marginal survivors of winter. Looking forward to picking up high tone. So this unfortunate part about being on the mountain is you've got a lot of rock under your feet. Rock is nice, rock is fine, rock is stable, but rock is also cold. So unless you've got some way that you can store a lot of heat, the mountain gets cold really quick. It's an eroded plateau, not a mountain, but at the same time, limestone does not hold heat well. And the soil is thin. So you have a couple of inches of soil, then limestone. So you got to do a lot of building of retaining walls and stuff like that, relying more on your trees and your short, shallow-rooted things, blackberry brambles, blueberries, stuff like that. And of course, yeah, you set up high tunnels. You can grow conventional vegetables in those too if you're in the Ozarks. Cannas want deeper soil than typically you would find in the Ozarks, and they want a lot of moisture. Now, Vicky's not suffering from moisture so much as she's suffering from, I think, shallow soil. Those rhizomes take up a lot of room. So nice, loose, sandy soil like we have on the river bottom, great for these things. They love it. Evelyn said, I tried Himica twice so far here in 9B, no go. Didn't manage to get it to take, I'm taking. Katie saying, hey, people, I got tubs of tomatoes, lots of peppers, okra, and eggplant. Nothing exactly plentiful and tasty. Been busy preserving. That's good. The only reason I look into exotics is I'm trying to find that one thing that whenever it comes here into this particular environment, it goes, oh my gosh, I'm home. I can't believe I've never grown here before. Why has nobody ever told me about Oklahoma? This is a great place to live. I'm just going to reproduce all over the place. They're like, okay, contain your enthusiasm, but go for it. I like to try things until I hit one and go, oh, wow, this goes really well here. I mean, that's how I stumbled across Canada. I just thought I was getting something that was going to have an edible flower. That's all I thought. And then I discovered that it was really a great starch storage root. Heterodox says Bohemia was Czech. Okay. Me gusta la chichis. All right. Sasper say no captains, no masters. Okay. Going back to what we were saying earlier. So the power that the captain exerts whenever he says who can get on the lifeboat and who can't is the power and right of the owner of the craft or vessel, the owner of the property. So I have a coffee cup. This is my coffee cup. Assuming that I have the right to property as this is my coffee cup, I can decide who I let drink out of my coffee cup. And if I say to you, no, you do not have my permission to take my coffee cup and drink out of it, then a polite society would respect the property right and not drink out of my coffee cup. So, don't get your nasty, grubby germs all over it. Also, you don't expose yourself to my nasty grubby germs. You probably don't want those. There's a good chance I could survive stuff that puts you in the dirt. But the right of the captain was the right of the property owner to say, no, you are not allowed to be on this lifeboat. Ideally, the captain goes down with the ship and it never becomes an issue in the first place. But then we have to ask the question, okay, what happens whenever same 3 lifeboats, 99 people, but for some reason we've got 115 people on board the ship? So the captain says, okay, I'm going down to the ship. That's my duty and my responsibility. And probably, depending upon their contracts, you're going to have sailors that wind up going down to the ship as well. Another way a civilization could do this, and this is what our group of people here on the sinking ship is, it's a civilization. We're all trying to figure out how we're going to survive, individually and collectively. The group says, okay, how do we survive? The ship's going down. We all can't get on the lifeboat. If everybody is their own owner and nobody is the property of another person, then a person that says, I will volunteer to stay behind on the sinking ship and not take a seat on one of the lifeboats, they can say that. They can exercise their free will to do that. And if they do that, then they can go forward for however long their life is from this onwards, secure in the knowledge that they have either saved or assisted in the saving of 900 other human lives. Or sorry, 99 other human lives. Where did they get 900 from? Anyway, 99 other human lives. So I helped save 99 people. Now, just because you're staying behind on the boat that's going down doesn't necessarily mean that's curtains for you. You might be able to find a piece of flotsam or something and cobble together a raft, survive it somehow, and still get rescued. But by choosing to stay behind on the boat, not getting on the life rafts, you are participating in the saving of 99 people. That's some pretty serious self-pride going on there, right? I'd like to be able to save 99 people. I mean, especially if, it's maybe the last thing I do on earth. I get to save 99 other people's lives. Hey, woo, go me. But that would be a volunteer position, of course, right? People could do that. What if the people on board the sinking ship get together and go, okay, here's what we're going to do. We've got these berthing compartments on board the ship. There's these big long halls with little rooms on this side and little rooms on that side. Each hall is going to have one person from that hall selected or elected, I don't care how you do it, to represent the people in your quarter, in your hall. And they're going to get together and going to form a committee, and they're going to decide who gets to go on the lifeboats and who doesn't get to go on the lifeboats. Something happens whenever you do this. I want you to pay close attention. In the first case, whenever the captain was making a decision, who gets to go on the lifeboat and who doesn't, he is acting under the rights and authority of the owner of the property, and it is absolutely the owner of the property's right to decide who gets to be on those lifeboats and who does not. All right? If we respect property rights at all. So he's in a righteous position. In the case of the committee, are any of these people in the committee the owner of the ship? So they don't have the rights of ownership to be able to say, I own these lifeboats. I can decide as owner who gets to be on them. So they're usurping the rights of the owner to begin with by forming this community and going, okay, we're going to decide who gets to be on the lifeboat and who doesn't. All right? That's for starters. Since they've already usurped the rights of ownership by doing this, whenever they tell a person, look, you can't be on the lifeboat, for whatever reason they cook up, it doesn't really matter. What right are they exercising? Let's think about this. What right is the committee exercising telling a person, you can't get on that lifeboat? Where did they derive the right? It didn't come from the right of property. They don't own it. Something to think about. So, oddly enough, I wound up discovering that this weirdly monarchical situation where the one person who's ultimately responsible and accountable for their actions is in charge of making decisions, in a weird way, as long as the right that they're exercising is the right of property owner, and excluding or including people that are allowed to use the property. They're acting within a just context. The committee is not. They're assuming ownership rights. So the big question is, do you live in a country right now that is being controlled by a committee? Does this committee take upon itself rights that it really doesn't have, specifically talking about the right of ownership. If they do have a right of ownership, have they properly defined what it is that they claim to own? Is what they claim to own you? Are you okay with being property? Has anybody bothered to ask you about this before? These are things to take away. I'm past an hour here. I'm going to go take a look at the poll, and let's see what the poll says. Okay, what statement better suits you? I usually know what I'm doing now at 35%. 30%. I'd like to know, or like to think that I know what I'm doing. 12% say there must be someone who knows, and 19%. Here we go. At 26 votes, 19% are saying people just make it up as they go along. Joe says, home down here that's vacant, as Canada is planted, and the home is inhabited, they still grow like weeds. Canada is one of those plants that, particularly in South and Central America, is just going to keep growing. You're not going to stop it. And even here in Zone 7A, there are a few varieties that once you've got them planted here, you're always going to have them. You can't get rid of them. And that's, for something that's a food source, that's a wonderful thing to have. So I've got food source plants that I cannot possibly get rid of. Hey, that's a pretty good deal. Mary's talking about how I discovered that I can grow sprouts. Yeah, I put them in a clear tote. Thought I'd put a bed sheet over them to block the light. Cat pulls it off. Yeah, they just sprouted and grew. It was great. Complete and total mayhem. Evelyn's talking about using a little bit of poke root. Yeah, a little bit doesn't hurt you. I mean, the active chemical ingredient in poke is atropine, which is interestingly enough, it's used as a treatment for nerve gas poisoning. If you ever get gassed, you get your atropine injector and get that into your system as quickly as possible. Atropine is also a nerve agent, but it counteracts the effects of other nerve agents. So that's the reason why they use it. But no, you're going to have to ingest an awful lot of atropine from a poke plant in order for it to kill you. And that was a cockroach just crawled right across the camera. Really? Bugs, I swear. Yep. Really cool looking tree, incidentally. Monkey puzzles are. Anyway, what Evelyn's trying to say is, you put that extract using vinegar and acid vinegar to extract a little bit out of the poke root, and you don't get gum inflammation as a result. Poke is also very high in protein. So if you have pokeweed growing, if you've got pokeweed growing, you can keep on cutting it back as it gets to the point where you start to see the little bit of a red tinge in the stem coming out. Go ahead and cut it back. Just keep on cutting it back. Every time it gets to that point, cut it back. They'll produce more fresh green leaves all the way through the season. And before it's over, let at least a few of them grow all the way up to full size and fruit. That way you'll have more of them, and the plant's just going to keep on coming back. Early in the spring, that for protein, and probably curly dock for a little bit of extra vitamins and minerals, and you can feed yourself off of it. And I'm thinking I can probably make some feed pellets for the ducks out of it too. Daily ingested and one dried pokeberry daily for over a year. One pokeberry a day is not going to kill you. Vicky has a 1,100 foot drop from the ridge top to the ravine bottom. Woohoo! That's called a hill. Sound like Lark and Rose. Hey. Oh, there's worse things to sound like. Howdy, Garden Zeniths. Saying howdy, good evening, good evening. Me and myself got up finally, said saved a potload of poke salad seeds this year. Have a lot of the goldenrod in my yard, but don't know what it's good for. Um, Mostly in medicinal purposes. Pokeberry juice has a number of uses, including as a dye. I have never used it as a dye. I have managed to get my fingers stained purple with it before. Anyhow, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. We've got probably another maybe 24 hours. I'm going to turn the green screen off so you can see this stuff. I got probably another 24 hours or so of letting this material cure. This stuff right here, which is this is lamb's quarter. We've taken and we've chopped it up into small sizes, so hopefully we can feed it through the feed pelletizer. But the main thing that we're trying to get out of it is the protein in these, and that is the seeds of the lamb's quarter, which are just coming on this particular time of year. And I figure if we can capture them and cure them right there, that will be good feed for the ducks. Now, right now, the little migratory birds are running around squawking at each other and yapping at me because I'm harvesting these. And they're like, hey, wait a minute, we were eating those. I'm like, yeah, I know you're eating these. These are good to eat. I've got critters that want them too. All righty, good people. I am going to go ahead and call it a night. Everybody have a wonderful evening. I thank you very much for coming out and joining me tonight and hanging out and listening to me vent my frustrations as I come close to yanking my hair out working with this machine. Hopefully I'm going to have something positive to show you with this operation here in the next couple of days. It'll be the second time going around. Of course, the first time going around, I blew a circuit. And now we've got the second circuit we're going to test with this machine, and we're going to run some more material through it. Hopefully we get it right this time, and I can show you some positive stuff of making feed pellets out of the weeds. You know, I keep on saying the weeds are a resource. They are. So we're finding a way to take our weeds and turn those into a useful resource here. I hope everybody has a wonderful evening. I will catch you later, but until then, you guys know the drill. Get out there and get growing.